Hey, what's up, guys? It's Cree. You're listening to another edition of Outside the Ring Wrestling Podcast, OTR for short. And this week it's just me. Paris will not be with me because she's in the midst of an internship. Because fortunately for her, she'll be graduating this September. So this internship is a part of her graduation requirements. So everybody tweet at PariXO, congratulations. She's almost done with school. And I hope that this podcast this week makes a lot of sense because it is listener's choice. I asked you guys on Twitter, what do you want me to talk about? Y'all gave me some topics. So I'm going to try to speak on everything because they're all somehow connected to what I wanted to talk about or what's going on right now. So please forgive me if I'm rambling a little bit too long. But thank you guys for tuning in because it's been 84 years since we last recorded a podcast. That's because, school, like Paris, she has her internship. I'm about to start a new job soon. So it's going to be really hard to try and get in the studio, especially when availability times are so shitty in general. But I want you guys to just stay with us. Hopefully the next time you hear us, we'll be talking about SummerSlam or at least the matches before, like giving our predictions, because we love to do those before really big pay-per-views. And SummerSlam is obviously the second biggest show of the year. It's going to be in Brooklyn, New York, again like last year. Unfortunately, Parents and I won't be going to SummerSlam, but I am pushing to try to go to Raw. I know there's still some tickets available. So I'm going to try and see if I can get that specific day, because Raw, before I wasn't really excited about Raw before, but now that with the brand extension and the drafts, I'm a little bit more excited. So there we go. So once again, you guys are listening to Outside the Ring Wrestling Podcast, and we're going to get the show started. Okay, guys, so about 2 weeks ago, we started with a new brand extension draft, which allowed unique superstars for both SmackDown and Raw. So that now means that if you're a fan of John Cena, you're no longer going to see him on Raw and SmackDown. You're going to see him on SmackDown now. And if you're a fan of Seth Rollins, you're going to now see him on Raw and not on SmackDown, like the old days. What I like about this, it now gives us an opportunity for new storylines, new championships, and new matchups, because after a while things got kind of stale. We were seeing like the same people in the same matches, or it was like the same finishes. It's a little bit more creative now, but I will get there to my opinions on Raw and SmackDown. So we had this draft, and my biggest gripe with the draft was how they set it up. It felt like even in the new era, it was still about the McMahons, because we had Stephanie and Shane trying to one-up each other, and then we had Mick Foley and Daniel Bryan trying to one-up each other and pandering to the crowd. And I feel like I understood why so many superstars were kind of upset about where they landed versus where they wanted to be. Like Cesaro was not happy about being on Raw. He wanted to be on SmackDown, which I feel like as a fan of Cesaro, I wanted him on Raw because my other favorites were on Raw, but I could understand his pain because SmackDown does seem like, you know what, they're going to be trying new inventive things. They're going to try to make it not a B show like it traditionally is, but make it an A show, and you're going to do great wrestling. We have so many things coming up with SmackDown. And I think Cesaro eventually will be a great addition. I do see them doing trades in the future. Hopefully after SummerSlam, they'll do trades, because I do feel like some people need to be on SmackDown and some need to be on Raw. And that's just how it goes. But after the whole draft happened, we had our Battleground. And I'm just going to talk quickly about some of the matches that stood out to me. I'm not going to talk about everything because not everything was worthy of discussing just because. So first thing first, we're going to talk about the match that opened the show, Sasha and her partner versus Charlotte and Dana. And of course, you guys know it was Bayley. Bayley being Sasha's partner was kind of obvious, but they did try little things to swerve us throughout the weeks, like the renders. People try to see if it was Paige because of how the hair was set up in the pictures. Some people was trying to say it was going to be Alicia Fox, which I didn't see happening at all, but it was trying to be different. But ultimately, it was the same person that we knew it was going to be, and it was a good match. It didn't really blow my mind like everybody else does, but I do love Bayley. I like Sasha. I like every girl in this match, even though I do think Dana hasn't really picked up the pace. Because here's the thing, when she was in NXT, she kind of outstarred Emma, to me, personally. I always felt like Dana knew exactly who she was and where she was going, but Emma always looked like, you know what, she has the talent, but she doesn't really seem like she's convinced that she's a heel or she's convinced that she's a face. Like, it always seemed like she wasn't quite sure of herself. But now that Dana's on the main roster with Charlotte and the other girls, she kind of looks lost in translation. And I think that ultimately what I would like to see is Charlotte, after this feud with Sasha, turns on Dana and kind of gives her the opportunity to be herself, because I feel like Dana is an amazing heel. And for some reason, when she's with Charlotte, it doesn't quite translate as well. I don't know if it's because the focus is primarily on Charlotte more so than Dana, but something doesn't seem right. Of course, Bailey and Sasha won. There was no question about that. Next match, I'll talk about the girls just to get out the way. Becky and Natty. Becky versus Natalya was probably one of the worst matches of the night. It was so slow and boring, which kind of disappointed me because, you know, as someone that likes Natty, I always felt bad for her on Total Divas because she always expressed some idea of wanting to be on TV again, wanting to wrestle, wanting to be a part of this revolution. And she never seemed to get her chance because either it was TJ who was out on injury right now or something happened to where the higher-ups weren't giving her that opportunity. I always felt like, you know what, Natty can deliver, she can do this. So they finally put her with Becky in a storyline that didn't even make sense. Like, after their match with Charlotte and Dana last month, Natty turned on Becky, which was kind of a good swerve because I wasn't expecting it. But we don't even know why they're fighting, really. We still don't even know why Natty turned on Becky. It just is a hot mess. So now we have this match. It wasn't interesting. It was dry. And I just hope that after this week of SmackDown that this whole feud is over. I'm tired. Give somebody else something to do. It's done. Becky deserves better. No shade. She just deserves better. Like, I feel like Becky's the only 4 horsewoman that doesn't really get treated well compared to the other girls. And I'm not sure why that is, but we need to fix it. Going on to another match, the Wyatts versus New Day. This was a storyline that I didn't necessarily care about because, to be honest with you, the Wyatts didn't really move me. Like, after a while, the Wyatts stopped moving me as a tag team. Bray Wyatt, he's an incredible talent, but he used to bore me because his booking never made sense. Like, he was dubbed the new face of fear, and he kept losing to every and anybody. I'm pretty sure if they had him face Eva Marie, he'd lose to her too. Like, it's just a mess. His booking does not make sense. So, like, now he goes against New Day and kind of like a similar storyline to the Final Deletion, if you guys follow TNA, with the Hardy brothers. And that was kind of like a little thing on Twitter. Even it got to the point where Bray and Matt Hardy were tweeting at each other, basically trying to show who's the real original bad bitch, basically. Because all of this doesn't make sense. You know, no matter what happens, people need to realize wrestling is scripted. Like, they get so hurt when they see TNA cover something WWE has done and vice versa. But it's just, relax, guys. Wrestling is scripted. Relax. But ultimately, the match was fun. Xavier has really improved so much as a superstar. I remember when he first debuted with the Funkadactyls, and then now into New Day, and we still weren't into New Day as yet, but then finally around SummerSlam, we started loving the New Day. And now look at them now, longest reigning tag team champions. Congrats to them. And then they have this storyline with the Wyatts, and it was good. It was a really good match. Of course, the titles weren't on the line, but New Day did lose to the Wyatt families, and it was a good match. I was actually impressed with it. Next, we have a match that I would seriously consider a match of the year candidate. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Like, I love Kevin Owens. I'm like a huge mark for Sami Zayn. Like, I love him so much. Like, no matter where you are, you play his music, it instantly lifts your mood. I think he's so talented. One day, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be in the title picture, but for right now, it doesn't make sense for them. They're still trying to build them as contenders, and as much as people who watch them in the indies know how talented they are and believe they should just have a rocket snapped on their back, I think it's sometimes the gradual build for these characters is good because it protects them a little bit. Because I would hate to see Sami Zayn get burnt out to the fans to where they don't even want to see him in matches anymore. Because it happens. But that match was incredible. It kind of was like the end for right now to their feud because obviously they have this thing about fighting forever. Kind of to the point where they kind of look like Peter Griffin and the chicken from Family Guy. So I love them. I think that I'm glad they're taking a pause in their feud because they kind of are like Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. It's like a feud that you could probably always see, but if it keeps going too long, you're going to get tired of it. So for now, we'll just see where they take them. And finally, the match of the night, the main event, the triple threat for the Shield. This is a match that we were kind of disappointed wasn't at a bigger pay-per-view because we all expected it to headline SummerSlam or eventually one day at WrestleMania. But I have to say this match delivered for me. We had Dean Ambrose walking as champ, Seth Rollins, who's salty about being cashed in on by Dean, and then we have Roman Reigns off of suspension, which, of course, was a huge thing because 30-day suspension for violation of the wellness policy. I won't get into it because we're late. Like, obviously we're late. We should have been talking about this a long time ago, but because we haven't been able to record, it just seems stupid to talk about it now. But Roman's back. I'm glad he's back. He looks better than ever. He has the beard finally. He had no ring rust, which was amazing because 30 days you're not really doing much. You're just sitting at your house doing nothing. I'm glad that he looks good. I'm glad that the whole match was great. I just really hated that he was pinned clean, but it seems like they're trying to do a redemption song for him. And while it doesn't really bother me, it kind of makes me question where they're going with him. Because I would really love for this man to be heel, and I hope it happens eventually. But of course, like, when it does happen, I want it to be great because Seth Rollins' heel turn was amazing. And I would hope that if Dean or Roman turns heel in the future, that their heel turns are taken seriously as well. So there's that. That was Battleground, and I'm about to get into Raw and SmackDown. So the first Raw of the new era kind of started off with a bang. Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley kind of addressed the WWE Universe and the superstars of Raw, letting them know that at SummerSlam, a new title, the WWE Universal title, will be introduced, and that because of Roman Reigns losing at Battleground, they're going to have to create this new title. So, of course, with Stephanie having Seth Rollins as like her child, he's automatically in the finals for SummerSlam. So what they did have was 2 Fatal 4-Ways, where the winner of each Fatal 4-Way would face each other for the main event of Raw, and that winner would go on to face Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. And then whomever wins at SummerSlam is the first ever WWE Universal Champion. So these Fatal 4-Ways were great. It consisted of Cesaro, Rusev, Chris Jericho, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, and Sheamus. All right, so these matches were great. Just to get to fast forward, Finn Balor and both Roman Reigns won their matches, and both had great matches. Next, we're going to go on to the women. Nia Jax made her debut. And what I love now about this new era is that they're not sacrificing talent to other talent. So a lot of people already assumed, which is so horrible, that Alicia Fox or Summer Rae was going to be sacrificed to Nia Jax to build her up as a talent. But what they're getting is local talent to be enhancement. So therefore, they don't have to put up not Sasha, but any other girl on the roster to another girl so that they can all be beneficial to growing as talent. They don't have to worry about Summer or Alicia jobbing, for lack of a better word. So here's the thing, what I will say. I like that Nia Jax is on the main roster because I do think she's representation for girls who don't look like the typical women's wrestler. I think that ultimately she isn't my favorite in the ring. And while she has paid her dues at NXT, I think what's going to happen is going to be the same thing that happened at NXT. They're going to give her these short matches that doesn't really show her ability, and people are going to get tired and they're going to turn on her fast. So I hope that in the future she gets longer matches to where she could really look destructive, because it's very obvious that they're high on her, and I can see her in the Royal Rumble coming up in January. So that's just that. Ultimately, we have Enzo and Cass going against the Shining Stars. And the Shining Stars, I don't see it for them. They're just not my favorite tag team. And it doesn't seem like WWE is very high on them either, because they've been pushing them with these promos and stuff, but they just haven't really taken off. I don't know what it is. Honestly, I think they need Carlito. And I know maybe Carlito is not coming back to WWE, but they need that influence to where people want to pay attention. And Carlito is the only person that makes sense. Like, even if Carlito comes back as a manager for them, that will make sense because they have this element that people are drawn to because people like Carlito. So it's like if you align them with him and he's their manager, he's going to get them so much heat. and I think that's going to be beneficial. But they lose to Enzo and Cass because R-Truth in the midst of the match comes out to catch Pokemon. Sometimes WWE's attempt to be relevant in popular culture, sometimes it's too much, but I thought this particular segment was funny. Um, but we can talk about what a lot of people are completely happy for, and I'm completely happy for her as well. But Sasha Banks finally defeats Charlotte and is the new WWE Women's Champion. Now, I'm so happy that these women got a long match. I believe they got about 16 minutes. And there was so much elements thrown into the match, which I was so happy for. You know, Sasha kind of paid homage to Eddie Guerrero. She was able to show that, you know what, when I was younger, I used to watch him, and then he's finally rubbed off on me, and I've used what he's taught me to be a champion now. And, like, this was kind of like Lita versus Trish. There were so many elements. You know, Charlotte and her moonsaults are fantastic. But I will say one thing. I want Sasha Banks to stop doing suicide dives because she's going to hurt her neck. Every time she lands badly on her neck, and it's going to be a career-ending injury. I don't want to jinx her. I don't want to make it something that I put him out into the universe, but she needs to start learning how to do different dives or something because she's going to hurt herself. But overall, congrats to Sasha Banks. I'm proud of her. I'm a Naomi fan, and a lot of people feel like Naomi fans in general don't like Sasha. While there are some that have an issue because they feel like, you know what, Naomi's constantly being undermined for younger talent, there are people who like both. Like, we could like both. And I'll get to Naomi in a second. But the main event of Raw, Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns. This was a fan-fucking-tastic match. Like, I was so happy with it despite the outcome. So, Finn Balor will advance to SummerSlam. He beat Roman Reigns cleanly at that. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was super bitter about it. My whole Twitter rant was just horrible. While at the same time I stand by everything, and I still stand by everything I said that night. I don't take anything back. I do think that Finn versus Seth will be a great match. Clearly, Finn Balor is a great competitor. He just bores me overall. Ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see someone who isn't a Shield member go against Seth for this new title because it just feels foreign right now. Just because I feel like we didn't really fully get the feud with Seth and Roman Reigns. It feels like every time we're supposed to get this feud with these two, somebody gets hurt or something happens. So, you know what? SummerSlam, they're going to have this match, and I hope to God it's a good one. Raw was solid that week. But going into this week, Raw, it was still good, but it wasn't as amazing. Seth and Finn faced off for the first time on the mic, and Seth Rollins devours Finn Balor on the mic for me. Like, we always knew Seth was good, but Finn is just not that great, which is surprising because nobody calls Finn out on it, but they call everybody else. But that's neither here nor there. They had a show off. Seth basically makes the point that everything you're trying to do, I've already done it. So you're kind of like the lesser version of me. And so, you know that thing Seth always does when he tries to swing on somebody first? He actually got this time. And so I'm kind of interested for this feud. Like, as much as I was hating on it last week and I was completely bitter, I'm interested to see what they do with this. It'd be interesting to see the dynamic at SummerSlam and who walks out the champ and who doesn't, or if something happens, but I'm interested. Sasha Banks and Charlotte actually opened the show, which is very rare. And it was a confusing, but it was a good segment. Chris Jericho actually came to the defense of Charlotte, and Enzo Amore actually came to defend Sasha. And they had a mixed tag, which we haven't seen a mixed tag in a while. And it was a good match. Like I said, Sasha Banks needs to stop doing suicide dives. But overall, Charlotte and Chris Jericho won because of a distraction by Dana Brooke. So it kind of makes Charlotte look good going into the next week's show because SummerSlam is around the corner. Honestly and truly, I'm just making a prediction. I can see Charlotte winning the title back at SummerSlam, but I'm not quite sure what they're going to do yet. But so far, their feud is really good. One of my followers made the case that they feel like, oh, Charlotte and Sasha should main event SummerSlam. And while that isn't a bad idea, I don't know. Now that Sasha wins the title, it doesn't feel as urgent as it did before. Now, if this was Sasha going in undefeated, still hadn't won the title yet, and Charlotte is finally on the last string of her title reign, then I'd be like, yeah, they should main event. But now that Sasha won, it doesn't feel like she needs to main event anything. And that's just my personal opinion, but that's there. Roman Reigns and Rusev. Now, a lot of people were really happy about Roman not being in the title picture, which is neither here nor there. Like, no matter what Roman does, I think he's going to do a great job at his match because he's been having these stellar matches for the last couple of months. I feel like the only bad match he's had this year was probably WrestleMania, but everything else he's hit out the park. So I'm really interested in seeing Rusev and Roman because these are two powerhouses that can go. Like, Rusev is so excellent in the ring. For some reason, though, I don't think Lana and him make sense anymore. Like, when Lana first came out, she was this powerful, badass manager. Now she just kind of is watered down to where she used to be. And I feel like Rusev can kind of do it on his own, but it feels weird because the last time he tried to do it on his own, it didn't work out. But Rusev and Roman did have a face-off last night, and it was really good. I was actually really surprised at how into it the crowd was, because I feel like whenever Roman really is against anyone, they want to boo him or they're not really into it. But what I've noticed with WWE crowds, if you give them a legitimate opponent that they can hate, I think they'll always have Roman's back. Because unfortunately with Roman's title runs or with his feuds from the latter part of the year, they've always kind of given them like a feud with someone that the crowd really loves as a face, like Daniel Bryan, Dean Ambrose. Like, those are people that the crowds really love. But when you put him against a Rusev or a Big Show, the crowds hate them. So it makes sense for them to want to cheer for Roman. But I don't run the business. I don't know shit. So that's it. But I'm super into Roman and Rusev. I can't wait for that. And so later tonight, Seth Rollins and Sami Zayn had a match. It was incredible. Sami Zayn, like I said, is an amazing talent. Seth Rollins, another amazing talent. I kind of want to see more matches down the line. But of course, this whole match was supposed to be like a lesson to Finn Balor. He did mention that he's going to put his friend in his place. He's going to put Finn in his place. But like I said, this whole feud with Finn and Seth is looking good. I just want to see how they build it. Because essentially, if you don't watch the indies and you're a casual wrestling fan, you don't know shit about Finn Balor. You know who Seth Rollins is because he's been like the champ for like how long? And then he went away because of injury, and then he came back, was champ, lost it, like all of that. So Finn Balor is just that dude from NXT. You've never seen him before, but you just know he has a good entrance because everybody raises their arm. So hopefully they build it up properly. It makes sense for that. And I think that's everything I want to talk about Raw. Nothing really stood out to me. And then we can go to SmackDown. So SmackDown had their first show since the draft. And it was okay. Like, you look at the audience and you could look at the crowd and you could tell that SmackDown, the roster is super depleted because Raw has the bigger roster and time slot. So when we started the show, Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon spoke about giving Dean Ambrose a new number one contender for the championship at SummerSlam. So what they had was, I believe, a 6-man pack challenge, I believe. And so they had Bray Wyatt, AJ Styles, John Cena, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, and I believe the last guy, so it ended up being a 7-pack challenge. The last guy who was going to face in the Battle Royal that opened the show was going to be in the main event to see if they can win and become the number one contender. So ultimately, the Battle Royal happened. It wasn't a great one because you can see how small the talent is down at SmackDown compared to Raw. But ultimately, Apollo Crews won, so he advanced to the main event. Next, we had Becky Lynch versus Natalya, and you know how I felt about their match at Battleground. But they had another one. It was slightly better, but still wasn't as interesting as it could have been. So Becky wins, and so to my surprise, Alexa Bliss comes out. She kind of introduces who she is, and she says she's going to be the personification of what the new era comes out. And then finally, my girl Naomi comes out, basically dismissing Alexa and letting her know she's going to shine on SmackDown. Next comes out Carmella, also giving her introduction, hoping that SmackDown is going to be a little bit more fabulous. And then finally, the one that we all came to see, I'm just kidding, but Eva Marie comes out, and she has this amazing entrance. And now if you watch NXT, you've heard the entrance before, but now they changed it up a little bit. It's going to be a voiceover versus a traditional announcer announcing it. And I think that this particular entrance is so amazing because it generates so much heat for her. And I think they do a really good job of generating heat for Eva Marie. And even then, without WWE, she does it great for herself because they just hate her for no reason. Well, there's a reason they hate her, but other than that, the hate for her is so intense. So I'm interested in what they're going to do for the women. I looked on Twitter today, and it said that the women are supposed to be getting a title. Daniel Bryan announced it on a radio show, and I'm telling you right now, I'm excited. I hope they have a tournament and that the finals happen at SummerSlam. Ultimately, I'm going to tell y'all right now Naomi should be the first champ. I know a lot of you are going to say, oh, Becky or Alexa, oh, Natty. No, Naomi. And I'm going to tell you why. Since this girl's gotten here, she's been undermined by every single body. She's always pinned the champion, but for some reason, her title opportunities always got snatched from her. She's pinned AJ Lee twice when she was champion, and then Paige came along after WrestleMania and got the championship. She's pinned Nikki Bella twice, but then all in all, the new girls from NXT came up, and then Charlotte became champion. It doesn't make sense. Naomi is the first Divas champion from FCW, and she needs to be the first champion for SmackDown because she's a vet. It makes the most sense. You're killing two birds with one stone. You're giving her her first title reign, one, and two, when it comes for her to drop the belt to the newer girls, she and Natty are the only two people who would make sense to be able to put them over. Like, it doesn't make sense for y'all to sacrifice Becky to another girl because Becky's never had a championship. Neither has Naomi. Natty is the only person on SmackDown that's had a championship reign. It's time to create newer stars. It's time to allow people to put over other divas by creating stars themselves. Like, it doesn't make sense. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, we don't want Naomi to win or because of whatever girl you like. Look, Naomi is probably one of the few girls who's going to make your girl look better. And that's just not even bragging. That's telling the truth. Y'all can say what y'all want, but Naomi is one of the best girls on SmackDown right now. She and Alexa Bliss could burn down the house. They're just that talented. And it doesn't make sense to give it to Natty because we've proved that with Battleground. No shade, but like I said, Naomi needs to be the first champ. That's just how it is. Like, if they end up not having Naomi as the first champ, it's not surprising, but her ass needs to be champ soon. That's just all I'm saying. Going on to the next segment, actually going to commercial, we find out that Shelton Benjamin is coming back. And I tell you, I marked out so hard because I love Shelton Benjamin. I used to watch SmackDown all the time as a child, and he was just the best. I always said that I felt like they should have done more with him, but I'm so glad he's coming back. I think that Kurt Angle needs to come back too because I would love to see something with American Alpha, who will be debuting. So by the time you hear this, either it will be tonight or the day before, depending on whenever I drop this. But American Alpha is so talented, and I think that them working with Shelton Benjamin or Kurt Angle would be so amazing. So now we get into the main event because nothing really much happened on SmackDown after that. I can't really think of much that's happened. We have this match. This main event was incredible. But all in all, the winner is Dolph Ziggler. And I made that sound anticlimactic because that's how I felt. Dolph Ziggler is the number one contender in 2016. Oh, my God. That's so petty of me, but it's weird. Like, I just couldn't see it. It was funny because, we were talking about who was going to win the match, and I said Dolph Ziggler as a joke. And then when I saw he actually pinned AJ, I was like, holy shit, what is happening here? But you know what? I hope this match at SummerSlam is good. Like I'm looking at it I'm looking at it as a pessimist right now because I don't really expect anything good out of this. Dolph Ziggler, I used to be a big fan, but it just after a while he just seems to not be as interesting as he used to be. It seems like he's trying to be Shawn Michaels. It seems like he's trying to be Billy Gunn all in one package. Like he's not him. And while Dean needs competition and he needs someone that can bring the best out of him, I don't think that's Dolph. I genuinely don't think that's Dolph. I would have been more content with AJ winning, but of course I obviously see AJ down the line because AJ would have pulled the best out of Dean. Because so far AJ has given Roman his best match on the main roster so far. So we'll see what happens. But like I said, so far the SummerSlam card is kind of iffy. It depends on what you like. Like, obviously, if you're a fan of Seth Rollins, this whole main event with Finn Balor is going to be everything to you. While if you're not a fan of either, it's kind of like, okay, two irrelevant people that I don't care for is going to be a champion. But if you like Brock Lesnar, and I didn't talk about this, but on Raw, we did have Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman talking. And they just kind of made a point of how Randy Orton's never going to beat Brock Lesnar. He's never going to hit him with the RKO. And literally out of nowhere, Randy Orton RKO's Brock Lesnar. And it was probably the greatest thing. I yelled so loud. And mind you, right now, I don't see it for Randy Orton or Brock Lesnar. They're just not my cup of tea. But when I tell you, when Brock hit the floor, I stood up and I started clapping. So I'm interested to see how this build-up is going to be because I don't see Brock Lesnar coming to SmackDown like Randy came to Raw. It just doesn't make sense. But we'll see what they do with it. I know it's going to be a lot. Hopefully they have fun with this one and make it interesting because for a lot of people, we're over Brock Lesnar because of this whole violation. He failed 2 tests, but he's nowhere going to get the punishment that Roman Reigns got. And while not a lot of you are going to say, oh, he's a part-timer, he can't be suspended because he's barely here. And you're right. It would be stupid to suspend a part-timer because you're not here every day. But I do think a fine or some type of punishment should be implemented because just because you're Brock Lesnar doesn't mean you get to do whatever the fuck you feel. Like, you're either going to pay, it's going to hurt your wallet, or you're going to have to do something that you're not going to like. And if that means laying down for Randy Orton, that's what the fuck it means. But I don't see that happening. Realistically, I don't see Randy Orton beating Brock Lesnar. It wouldn't make sense, and I don't think the storyline is compelling enough for Randy Orton to beat him. But I do see this being a trilogy. So the next time we might see Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar will probably be the Royal Rumble. If not, probably Survivor Series. Because they are kind of making this a Raw versus SmackDown kind of thing. Which, of course, when Survivor Series, which is one of my favorite pay-per-views, comes back, that's going to be amazing. Raw versus SmackDown is going to be amazing. So there's that. All right, y'all. So I'm going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about Finn Balor. Okay, so quickly I'm going to talk about Finn Balor and his whole push that's happening right now. One of my followers, Christine, she wanted me to speak a little bit about Finn Balor because obviously now that Finn Balor has beaten Roman Reigns on Raw last week, he's now facing Seth Rollins. And a lot of people are talking about, oh, his push, and do we think it's a little bit too fast or do we think it's premature? Like, what is my whole feeling? Here's my thing. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, a Roman Reigns fan talking about a push being too soon is so ironic. And let me tell you something. Roman did not get a championship opportunity out the gate. He had to fucking work for that shit. Because last time I checked, the only person in the Shield who's had a monster push since June of 2014 is Seth Rollins. And for some reason, whenever Roman's in the main event, people start shitting themselves because they think, oh, well, he's going to be handed everything. And no, but that's been Seth Rollins this whole time. And I don't want to attack Seth Rollins because I enjoy him and I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I don't like him. But you can't tell me that compared to all the accolades of all the Shield members, Seth has the most, and he's had the most since June 2014. And that's just how it is. But now with Finn coming into the fold and him now being in this title match, do I think his push is a little fast? I do. Just because of I know his history from NXT. And while Finn is probably one of the fewer guys that's coming from NXT that can take Seth Rollins in the ring and I think can keep up with him. We also just forgot that Finn Balor just came off of a boring ass title reign down at NXT. Like, he feuded with Samoa Joe for 8 months and it was literally the worst thing to happen in the history of NXT. And while I think Finn is talented, like I said, he doesn't move me as a competitor. Ultimately, you know what? They're going to do what they want to do with Finn Balor. Ultimately, I think this is going to be the creation of the club or the Balor Club growing in WWE because Anderson and Gallows are on Raw as well as Balor. And while AJ kind of was the leader of the club, he's now on SmackDown. So I don't really see him showing up until SummerSlam to help out Balor. Ultimately, if I had to book the main event for SummerSlam, Finn Balor would win, and that's only because Anderson and Gallows and AJ helped him to do so. And I don't have a problem with them pushing and creating new stars. I don't. Because as much as I'm bitter about Finn Balor facing Seth, I think that y'all complain about unpredictability not being a thing, and y'all complain about having new stars. So you're going to get Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler now because that's what y'all wanted. And you're going to get Finn Balor versus Seth because that's what y'all wanted. I'm just going to sit back and watch it and see what happens because who knows? SummerSlam may be an amazing show from top to bottom. But do not complain when Dolph Ziggler becomes champion, and do not complain when Finn Balor becomes champion and you don't like his title reign because you wanted unpredictability. Like, who knows? Maybe it will be great. I'm not trying to shit on it. I'm not trying to say it's going to be horrible. But I'm just not going to think too hard about it. Because I'm going to say now, with this new era, I'm going to try and have low expectations for everything because I end up enjoying it way more than I do when I had higher expectations and we had shittier products. Ultimately, Finn Balor, I think this feud with Seth Rollins is going to be good. Because so far it's been shaping up to looking really interesting. It seems like Seth is going to try to push this whole thing about him being the prototype and, you know, that thing, that Instagram meme when you order it online versus when it comes. That just seems like that's the whole angle Seth Rollins and Finn Balor is going for. And I'm enjoying it so far. I don't have a problem with his push because I think, you know what, they're going to have to push people after a while, especially with now Roman doing more mid-card stuff and Dean is on SmackDown. Seth Rollins has to hold it down for main event people because I don't see him doing anything else. That's just it. I don't see him doing anything else. Seth Rollins is, and that's the gag. That's the true gag. Seth Rollins is always going to be in the title picture. That's just always going to be. And y'all are never going to complain about it. But as soon as Seth Rollins has to face Roman Reigns again, y'all going to start crying like little babies. But that's just how it is. Hopefully Finn Balor grows every single week because his mic skills need work, obviously. But I think I'm optimistic for him, and I'm not even a huge fan. Like, I'm not going to be like I'm in his fan base, but I like him thus far. I just hope he grows and he does better. I don't know what else y'all want me to say about Finn Balor, because I'm trying not to be biased, and I'm trying to also see it how I see it. Like, see it hindsight 2020. But, like, I think it could be really good, but I know that Finn Balor does not excite me like that. So hopefully as this feud builds, it starts to make more sense and it starts to be more interesting, and the casual fans can learn to love Finn Balor like everybody else does. Like I said, Seth Rollins right now is kind of devouring him on the mic. So hopefully Finn will grow. I don't know if Triple H has to give him some one-on-one lessons on how you devour your opponent on the mic, but he needs some work. Because I think with these promos coming up with Seth Rollins, Seth's ego is getting bigger and bigger, and he's going to learn and try to emasculate Finn any way he can. And if Finn can't keep up, it's going to be a real bad time for him. But thank you guys for listening. That was the podcast. Hopefully the next time you hear us, it will be me in Paris, and we'll be talking about SummerSlam. If not, unfortunately, we'll try to have something special coming up because Everything is just hitting us at one time, whether it be school and work. Thank you guys for listening. You can email us at theotr101@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, and or concerns. You can hit me up on Twitter at Cookies and Cree, COOKIESANDCREE. And if you want to follow Paris, it's PareeXO, PAREEXO on Twitter. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. I hope this podcast made sense to y'all because I try to wrap everything up in a bowl with the new era and what's going on and these pay-per-views. So we can talk about it on Twitter. Like, if y'all have a point that I said that y'all agree with, disagree with, as long as y'all come respectfully, I don't have no problem talking about it. Just don't try to be cute in my mentions because that cute shit will get you blocked. But anyways, guys, have a good day and don't get in trouble, I guess. Adios.